Hi, my name is Marco, and welcome to The Model Gene. Today, I'm going to be discussing some of the best and worst covers from September 2023. September is the most important month for most fashion magazines, so buckle up, we have a lot to discuss. We might as well start off with the most disappointing fashion moment of the year, American and British Vogue's disastrous covers of the original supermodels, Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell, Christy Turlington, and Linda Evangelista. Tatiana Patitz tragically passed away early in the year, otherwise she would have been on this cover as well. There is a lot to unpack here, but first I need to give the photo some historical context. Peter Lindbergh's January 1990 cover of British Vogue is widely regarded as the birth of the supermodel, where the women themselves became celebrities known by their first names and their unique personalities. This cover absolutely stands the test of time by so many metrics, but what I love most is that you can clearly see the identity and personalities of the individual women in the cover. This cover wasn't about fashion, they were wearing their own jeans and shoes, and it showed a different perspective on beauty, an artistic point of view that Peter Lindbergh shared throughout his career. Now, over 30 years later, the supermodels reunited, except this time, all the authenticity was stripped away. There are many problems with these covers, but the way that these women have been obliterated by Photoshop is the most offensive. I'm not sure exactly who to blame for this, if it is photographer Rafael Pavarotti or even Anna Wintour and Edward Enninful, but the overwhelming response online has been that the Photoshop looks crazy. We are talking Pixar-level CGI. The interviews for this shoot that are on YouTube show the extraordinary beauty of these women, but the images try to wipe away the last decades off of their faces. Trigger warning, the following photo from the accompanying editorial might give you nightmares, but seriously, how did this happen? I feel ashamed for everyone involved, but most of all, I feel bad that these legendary women who shaped the fashion industry are being disrespected. To attack a woman's face with this level of retouching is rooted deeply in misogyny and really shows that at the end of the day, despite how many plus-size models or minorities they try to wash themselves with, these institutions are still deeply backwards and don't believe women are beautiful beyond their 20s. Instead of celebrating how the supermodels look in their 50s, the message is that even the most beautiful women in the world are too horrifying to look at without every wrinkle being removed from their face. These women deserve better. We, the public, deserved better. This is my pick for the worst cover of the month. Vogue Japan's cover of Hailey Bieber is comically banal, which should be trademarked as Vogue Japan's unofficial slogan. It's not the worst cover of the month, just average in every possible way. This cover does, however, feature one of my retouching pet peeves, the over-whitened eye sclera. Vogue Arabia went to Disneyland Paris for 3 of their covers, and it is definitely some of the best work to come from the magazine in recent months. Especially with so many magazines combining AI imagery with photography for their covers, I love that they actually went to a real-world place of fantasy. This solo cover of Farnoosh uses the undulating hedges to entertain the eye, while maintaining the light-hearted Disney spirit with the comedy of the bird's backside featured so prominently on the cover. I think the other 2 covers are even better because they found a way to put black dresses on the cover while keeping the cover entertaining. There is always a struggle between magazines wanting to create a strong cover while pleasing their fashion brand advertisers, and given how well black clothing actually sells, these 2 covers make everyone happy. I would have preferred more creative hair and makeup for the shoot, but overall, not a bad cover for Vogue Arabia. Vogue España's cover of actress Ursula Corbero is pretty, but I am surprised to see it for the September issue. Everything in the image is soft and delicate, from the lighting to the colors, which is surprising for a September issue that is supposed to motivate people to buy the magazine and everything in it. An image can be both beautiful and not great for a cover, which I would say is what happened here. Dua Lipa is on the cover of Vogue France, which has left me puzzled. Using a celebrity for a cover is done to get attention from their fans and hopefully drive sales, but Dua Lipa looks unrecognizable here with her bleached brows and how much of her face she has covered. Clearly, this strong silhouette was prioritized over the color of the garment because this shade of brown with this background and text are not motivating me to buy the magazine. I am also curious as to why only one half of photography duo Mert and Marcus were involved in this cover, but perhaps Marcus is the missing ingredient here. This cover of Loli Bahia for M. Le Monde's September issue immediately takes me back to this photograph of Lily Cole by Tim Walker, one of my favorite editorial images of all time. Gordon von Steiner's photo may not have the same impact as the one by Tim Walker, but I think it is still a really beautiful cover. There is a real angelic quality to the photo, and I think every element here was perfectly executed. There are 6 other covers for this issue, and honestly, I really like them all. My preference is for the 4 covers shot on location rather than in studio, but I'm impressed when a magazine can do 7 covers by 1 photographer and they are all successful. I love this Vogue Italia cover of Angelina Kendall by Carlijn Jacobs. The image is clean and eye-catching with a carefully considered use of color and negative space. Looking back at all of the covers of Vogue Italia from this year, this one is my favorite so far and my favorite cover of the month. Vogue Portugal says let's work for the coming back issue, and all 3 covers are working for me. My favorite is the cover of Alisa Volkskaya in this Gwyneth Paltrow-inspired Viktor and Rolf haute couture look. Beyond the absurdism of the actual garment, the model's pose is delightfully fluid, and particular attention should be given to how well her hands are positioned. There's a lot going on in the sumo-inspired look of Minami, but I like how we are balancing a traditional sport with a modern styling. This cover is definitely standing out on a newsstand. The 3rd cover mixes sneakers with tulle on an exasperated model who looks overcome with dread to be back in the office. I will always be intrigued by narrative-driven photography, and this is no exception, even if this feels more suited for a page in the editorial rather than a cover image. Pop magazine has a bunch of covers that are making it confusing for me to decipher what is the voice of the magazine. On the one hand, you have the covers of Instagram influencers, celebrities, nepo babies, and plastic surgery aficionados. This all feels very generic and typical for an indie magazine, trying to get as many famous people as possible to try and increase their reach. Like this cover of Penelope Cruz just feels silly and low-end. Now compare that to this fantastic cover of Abby Lee by Charlotte Wales. Even with her feet planted firmly on the ground, there is so much movement and dynamic energy in the photograph. These beauty portraits are so lovely and such a big contrast from some of the other covers. The most middle of the road of the Pop magazine covers is this one of Mona, who you know if you've seen my other videos that I'm a huge fan of, but this image just feels so derivative of Mario Testino and Terry Richardson. There are many young photographers that have become famous replicating that style of photography, but I guess originality isn't as important as social media influence. Perfect Magazine's 5th issue features 29 covers, so let's look at a couple of hits and misses. Corbin Shaw by Alasdair McLellan looks like an amateur test shoot for a London modeling agency. I expect more from him, at least some type of story in the expression of the subject, but that is difficult with Corbin's eyes closed. We have another subject with their eyes closed. Not a very exciting photo of Zayn Malik, but I'm going to imagine he was thinking about his daughter.
Since I've had my daughter.
The strongest covers of the bunch come from Jean Glynn, like this colorful Pucci dress on America Gonzalez, Vittoria Ceretti in a hair tornado, or this artistic departure of Kylie Minogue. Her covers have the strongest concepts and execution. My least favorite are these 2 covers of Gwendolyn Christie by Morgan K. Spencer for using a celebrity but obfuscating her face, which seems to defeat the entire point. I normally don't mention Rolling Stone magazine, but this cover of Leanne by Mariano Vivanco is too good to pass up. The all-over glitter look isn't revolutionary, but this is definitely some of the best work to come from Mariano in a long time. Zendaya is on Elle Magazine's September cover, shot by Stephen Klein, and as much as I love Zendaya as an actress, this cover is lacking. Starting with her pose, you can see by her limp hands that she isn't actually flexing, and she is lacking tension in her upper body. I want to feel strength from this pose, and it is not being conveyed. The background is very busy, and with all the texture from her dress, it feels overkill. If she was not a Louis Vuitton ambassador, I'm sure we could have gotten her in a better look for the cover, but that is the double-edged sword when you work for them. You will be paid, but you will not look good in their clothes. From the other images in the editorial, I think both of these could have made a stronger cover. Vogue Germany featured Ashley Graham for their September issue, but I'm not a fan of this selection for the cover. If you compare these 2 images with similar poses and background, I think the one in the black trench makes a better image and cover. The direct overhead lighting on the cover required her to lift her chin up to light her face, but as a result, we get less of her eyes. In the other photo, the cloud coverage offers a soft, diffused light that gives us more of her beautiful face. My other issue with the cover is the dress, specifically where it ends in the front, because that front foot looks like a lump of meat without more of her ankle visible or her foot turned more. In the other photo, her exposed leg is elongated, her waist is nipped in, allowing the eye to travel more, but I will say, the pose feels very modeling 101. My personal choice for a cover would be this 3rd photo that feels more dynamic and clean for a cover. Now to touch on a few menswear covers, let's start with Aaron Taylor Johnson for Esquire magazine. I find it difficult to differentiate between the work of Norman Jean Roy and Annie Leibovitz at times, but color grading aside, I prefer the shirtless cover. The styling in this cover feels so contrived, especially with the tall boots that are suspiciously unlaced, and I wish his hands were visible so it wouldn't look like he was wearing his dad's coat. The other cover feels more authentic, and the rain helps heighten the mood. GQ has Pharrell on their cover, inspired by a 1953 painting by Magritte. Besides the obvious surrealist motif, the photo is falling flat for me. Photographer Fanny Latour-Lambert has a very easily identifiable style of muted highlights and strategically saturated images. But that style is curiously absent from this cover, but when I look at her other covers for GQ, it seems that the magazine is asking for a more conservative cover image. V-Man features 3 new leading men suiting up for fall, but I don't like any of these covers. The best of the 3 would be of Park Bo-gum, because at least we see his face, but the backlit photo removed a lot of dimension from his face. Harris Dickinson wearing a hoodie with a blazer makes my stomach churn, and the lighting is directing your eye to his ear. I understand that it's a stylistic choice to adjust the color of the shadows to be completely red and magenta, but we lose a lot of contrast like this. I imagine the photograph looked more like this out of camera, which personally I prefer. V-Man also has alternative covers for subscribers of the magazine. The ones of Park and Josh are much nicer, but this one of Harris is somehow worse. Here we have even less of his face visible, and it is accentuating his hairline. I think photographer Nathaniel Goldberg has something against him because he is managing to shoot him in a very unflattering way, considering how handsome the actor actually is. GQ Portugal has male supermodel David Gandhi on their cover, and I like seeing him shot in this way. The instinct of most photographers is to go in a very sexy, hunky direction with David, but it is a nice change to see him in a more fashionable look. The warm tones feel very autumnal, and I really like the shape of these trousers. Clément Chaberneau covers 10 Men's autumn-winter issue, but the text on the cover does not fit. This photo is lacking elegance, grace, and beauty. This coat by J.W. Anderson is decidedly juvenile, nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't feel well suited on Clément. I think a more joyful expression on his face would have helped. He just looks so serious for someone dressed like Big Bird. Be sure to subscribe to find out who comes out on top next month in the Battle of the Covers.